Hey, what's up, guys? This video is for the AP exam review for AP Statistics. I do have a video for one question. It is going to be a free response question, and it is about intervals, confidence intervals. So let's go ahead and look at the question, and I'll show you guys, refresh your memory for the steps writing the free response for the confidence interval. You guys can pause the video for a second, read the question, and then we'll get back on the steps on constructing the confidence interval. All right, so the question is asking about a confidence interval for 90% confidence. So first of all, I'm going to circle, or I'm going to put a box around the confidence level. We do have two species. One of them is for the butterflies. They have the sizes in centimeters. So we have different sizes. And species two, you also have different sizes. When you guys count the sample size of each species, we know that you can see that for species one, or for both species, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have a sample size of 8. I'm going to write that down on the side because that's going to be very important when you guys construct a confidence interval. You guys will need to check for normal. So I'm going to put here 8. So when you guys write the free response question, first of all, you guys have to state your parameter, and you guys have to state your confidence level. So let's go ahead and do the state step first. So states, you guys will have two different samples. So for this one, you guys will have the difference. And notice the question also says, calculate the 90% confidence interval to estimate the difference between the mean wing sizes of the two species. So here, we're going to have the difference of two parameters. We're going to have mu1 minus mu2. That's going to be the parameter. And the parameter is the true difference mean size for the two species. So that's how you write down your parameter. You guys also have to state the confidence level. So I'm going to say confidence level equals 90%, which is 0.90. And then you guys can go to step number 2. Step number 2, you guys are going to plan your solution. Planning your solution, well, first of all, you guys have to state what method you guys are going to use. So the name of the procedure, here we have two different samples, and we're using the means. So the name of the procedure will be a two sample t interval, and I'm using t because we do have the means. So when you guys have means, we have to use the t distribution, and it's going to be for the differences of the parameters mu1 minus mu2. So that's going to be the name of the procedure. But in this same step, in the plan step, you also have to check your conditions. So one of the conditions is you guys have to check that the samples are random. So they do say, I'm just going to show you guys again. Let me make the picture a little bit bigger. They do say that we have randomly selected butterflies. So right here, you guys have the word randomly. So condition number 1 is met, but you guys have to explain. So I'm going to say the two samples are randomly selected, and that's how you guys write it down, randomly selected. You guys have to explain why is that condition met. And then the second condition is the 10% condition. Now this one, guys, let's just review 10%. If the two samples are independent, you don't really need to check the 10% condition. And or if you guys have infinite populations, it never stops. If you guys don't have to check the 10% condition. These two species are independent. So nope, we don't need the 10% condition. But just in case you guys forget, remember that you have, for the 10%, you guys have to multiply the sample size by 10, and then you guys just make sense of the population within that sample. So my sample size are 8. So I'm going to multiply 8 times 10. So that's sample size number 1. and sample size number 2 is also 8. So you guys multiply that by 10. And butterflies, we know we have more than 80 butterflies in the population. So it actually checks. So 10% condition, yes, is met. Random, yes, is met. I'm going to put here, we have more than 80 in the population. And this is butterflies, more than 80 butterflies in the population. And the third one, you guys have to check that it's normal. Now for the next one, let me just put the word population here. For the next condition, we have to be careful when you guys have the means, because for the means, and you guys want to check that it's random, well, there's a few ways you guys can do this for randomness, okay? You guys can check if we can use the central limit theorem. Now the central limit theorem is when the sample size is more than 30. Our sample sizes are not more than 30, so we cannot use the central limit theorem. Different way you guys can check is if the population is normal, then whatever sample size you guys have for a sample, the sample will be normal. So what I'm trying to say, if the population is normal, then the sample will be normal, but they don't mention anything about the population. So we have to go to the third way you guys can check. You guys have to check the graphs. So for the graphs, you guys can use a histogram, you guys can use the dot plot. Since you guys are using a graphing calculator, go ahead and use a histogram so you guys can check that is normal. And the way you guys check is you just put the numbers in the calculator. So let me just review with you guys for this condition here. You can check the central limit theorem. If the sample size is more than 30, then everything is good. It's going to be normal. And if you guys have, so I just noticed, guys, I wrote the word random, but it has to be normal. Okay, so the third condition is normal. So for this condition that is normal, the central limit theorem is not going to work on this one. So with the calculator, what you guys are going to do is you will put the numbers in the calculator with two different lists. List 1 is going to be species 1, and list 2 is going to be species 2, and you guys will need to check the graphs. Now, I'm going to show you guys with the calculator, and you will have to draw the graphs on paper on your free response. And when you guys are checking the graphs, well, for the normal, you guys can have a little bit of skewedness, not strong skewedness. When you guys have a sample size less than 30, you guys can have a little bit, not strong skewedness, and no outliers. So let me show you guys the calculator. So in the calculator, guys, just remember, you guys go to stats, edit list. I already have my two lists here, list 1 and list 2. So after you guys have those two lists, you guys have to check each one of them, okay? So I'm going to check my histogram for the first list, species number 1. So I'm going to go to second, stat plot. I'm going to make my histogram, and just to refresh your memory, histogram is right here. I'm going to choose my histogram, and I am using list 1. So I'm going to graph it, and if you don't see any data, any graph on the screen, you guys go to zoom number 9 right there, and notice this one. It looks maybe a little bit, just a little bit skewed to the right. That's what it kind of looks like, but there's no outliers. So for this graph, it's okay. You have no strong skewedness, and there's no outliers. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to draw this graph for species number 1 on my paper, and then I'll go to species number 2. So you guys see my graph right here on paper. That's what you do, guys. You label that as species number 2, and species number 1, and you guys go to species number 2. Oh, you also have to mention that on this one, no strong skew and no outliers. So you just write it down so people who are reading your responses, they know that the graph, you guys have a good one, and it actually passes the normal condition, no outlier. So let's go ahead and look at the second one. So let me get my calculator ready, and I'm going to show you guys a histogram for species number 2. So now in the calculator, using list 2, I'm going to make my histogram. So same thing as before. I'm going to go to second stat plot right there. I am going to use a histogram, and instead of list 1, I'm going to use list 2, and you guys change that to list 2, and then you guys graph it. Remember to use zoom number 9 if you guys don't see the entire graph. So this one here, well, you guys do have a skew maybe to the right. This one here, there's a space in between, but it looks like an outlier, but for the AP exam, for the most part, conditions are met. So even though this looks like an outlier, I don't think it is. It's not too far away. So you guys have a little bit skewness to the right, maybe an outlier, but I don't think it is. It's not too far away. So we're okay on this one. You guys can use this graph, and when you guys graph it on paper, don't make it too complicated. Just copy what you guys see on the calculator, and then you just make the histogram on paper. So let me do that right now. And you guys see the graph here. Don't make it too complicated. Again, just copy what you guys see on the graph on the calculator, and just you guys sketch that on paper. So this is step number 2. You guys have to check the conditions. Then for the next one, you guys are going to do step number 3, which is you guys do the work. And if you guys don't remember the formula, you don't have to write the formula, but I'm going to show you guys at least write something that shows that you guys are constructing a confidence interval. So for the confidence interval, and you guys, if you don't remember the formula, at least remember this setup. You guys have your points estimate plus or minus margin of error. Okay. Now, after you guys write this down, or you guys remember the setup, you guys can use your calculator, and remember to write down what you use in the calculator, so that people know that you guys are using your calculator. Now here, since we do have the 2 lists in the calculator, we can use data instead of statistics in the calculator. So I'll show you guys that in a second. But let's go ahead and write down in my calculator. I used, and you guys have a 2 sample t interval, and then you guys have to explain what you guys use in your calculator. So I'm going to use data, and I'll show you guys that in the calculator. I have list 1, list 2, and my confidence level is 0.90. So let me show you guys the calculator, so I hope you guys remember where to go. So you guys are going to go to stats right here. Let's go to test and look for the 2 sample t interval, and I'm looking at this one here, 2 sample t interval. When you guys click on that, notice you have 2 options, data and stats. So data is when you guys are using the numbers in your list 1 and list 2. If you guys have stats, that means we know what is x bar for species 1, standard deviation species 1, sample size of 1, and then you guys have the same data for sample number 2, x bar 2, standard deviation of sample size 2, and the sample size of 2. We don't have that, but we do have the data. So we do have list 1 and list 2, and then you guys will go down to the confidence level, double check your confidence level is 90%. Never pooled for the means. You guys never use pooled, so no, you always say no, and then you guys calculate. So it might take a second, but your interval, there we go, you guys have from 0.28063 to 2.2194. So you guys write that down on paper, and you guys will have your confidence interval. So I rounded to 3 decimal places here. It's okay if you guys round. Just make sure you guys use parentheses. That's the way we write down the interval. And you guys have the lower bound and the upper bound. Now there's one more step. You guys have to conclude. Now your conclusion, you guys have to say we are 90% confident, and then you guys write it in context of the problem. So let me write down the conclusion for you guys. And this is the wording you guys use. Conclusion says we are 90% confident that the interval from 0.281 to 2.219 captures a true difference. Notice I'm using the word true difference between the mean wing sizes of the two species. So this is in context for the problem. We're talking about the wing sizes of two species, and we have the confidence interval here. So this concludes my video, guys. Make sure you guys practice. I'm going to add more videos for you to review for the AP exam, and I'll see you guys later.